Ma tovu, ma tovu, ochalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael, ma tovu, ma tovu, ochalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Shabbat Shalom, Shalom Park, friends, neighbors, and guests. I'm Rabbi Bertie Becker. All are welcome to our Kabbalat Shabbat service. Using the Shalom Park Siddur, we are on page 2. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, ladonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, ladonai. Naria, naria, letzoya shehenu, nikadma vana betoda. Naria, naria, letzoya shehenu, nikadma vana betoda. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, ladonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, ladonai. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose and meaning. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may we live in such a way that this Shabbat fulfills its promise to us. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, ladonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, ladonai. Come, let us sing joyfully to God a new song. Let us come into God's presence with praise and raise a shout for God, all of the earth. Shiru l'Adonai, kol haaretz. Shiru l'Adonai, shir chadash. Sing unto God all the earth a new song. I will sing unto God a new song. Sing unto God and we'll all sing along. The earth a new song unto God. Shiru l'Adonai, kol haaretz. Shiru l'Adonai, shir chadash. I will sing unto God a new song. Yismechu hashamayim v'tagel haaretz, yiram hayam umlo'o. Let the heavens rejoice and the earth be glad. Let the seas roar and all within it thunder. Adonai malach tagel haaretz yismechu ihim rabim. Anan va'arafel sevivav tzedek umishpat machon kisa'o. Light is sown for the righteous and joy for the upright in heart. Exalt in Adonai, you righteous, and give thanks to God's holy name. Romamu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lahar kodsho, ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. As we get ready to welcome the Sabbath bride. On the last verse, we rise as we are able, physically or spiritually, to greet the Queen. We're on page 6. Ya la 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 chadodi likrat kala P'nei Shabbat nekabala lechadodi likrat kala P'nei Shabbat nekabala la 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 shamor v'zachor v'dibur echad Ishmiyanu el hamayuchad Adonai echad u'shemo echad L'shemot tiferet v'liti la 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 kadodi likrat kala P'nei Shabbat nekabala lechadodi likrat kala P'nei Shabbat nekabala la 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 likrat Shabbat lechuvenecha Imekor habaracha Merosh mikedem nesucha Sof ma'asaba makshavatihi la 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 kadodi likrat kala P'nei Shabbat nekabala lechadodi likrat kala P'nei Shabbat nekabala la 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 We rise as we are able. Page 9. Bo'e v'shalom hateret bala Kam v'simcha v'tochala Toch emunei am segula Bo'e chala la 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 kadodi likrat kala P'nei Shabbat nekabala Lechadodi likrat kala P'nei Shabbat P'nei Shabbat P'nei Shabbat La 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 Please be seated. Psalm for Shabbat. Let's read it in English on page 11. It's good to thank Adonai, to sing praises to your name, to proclaim your love every morning and your faithfulness every night, to the sound of the 10-string lyre, with the music of the lute and the harp. Your works, Adonai, bring me gladness. Of your deeds, I joyously sing. Middle of Levin. Tzadik Adama Yifrach Yifrach, Tzadik Adama Yifrach, Tzadik Adama Yifrach Yifrach, Tzadik Adama Yifrach. Ke'eres belvanon yiske, Ke'eres belvanon yiske, Ke'eres belvanon yiske, yiske. Ke'eres belvanon yiske, Ke'eres belvanon yiske, Ke'eres belvanon yiske, yiske. The Call to Worship, page 13. Teach me, O God, a blessing, a prayer, on the mystery of a withered leaf, unripened fruit so fair, on the freedom to see, to sense, to breathe, to know, to hope, to despair. Teach my lips a blessing, a hymn of praise. As each morning and night you renew your days, lest my day be today as the one before, lest routines set my ways. Machu et Adonai hamevorach Baruch Adonai hamevorach hamevorach leolam vaed hamevorach hamevorach leolam vaed. Uma'avir yom umevi laila umavdil bein yom uvein laila. Adonai tzvaot shemo el chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu leolam vaed. Baruch ata Adonai hama'ariv Aravim. God offers love of the world, Ahavat Olam. We recite the Shema, the watchword of our faith, the 6 words that say, God is unique and alone and one. And then we offer back the love of our hearts and of our souls and of our beings. Page 15. Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael Amcha Ahavta Torah u'mitzvot Chukim mishpatim Otanu limadta Al kein Adonai Eloheinu B'shokbenu u'vkumenu Nasiach b'chukecha V'nismach b'divrei Toratecha U'v'mitzvotecha Le'olam va'ed Ki hem chayenu V'orech yamenu U'va'hem negeh Yomam v'layla Ve'ahavatcha taseh mimenu l'olamim Baruch ata Adonai Ohev amo Yisrael Ohev amo Yisrael Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod Mo'olam. Page 18. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha u'kshartam le'od al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha Uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvish arecha. You shall make for yourselves seat on the corners of your garment throughout the ages. The seat are reminders to do all of my mitzvot, so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai your God. I led you out of Egypt to become your God. I am Adonai your God. Who among the mighty compares to you, Adonai? Whose holiness is as glorious as yours, praised and awesome and doing wonders. Michamocha, Ba'elim Adonai, Michamocha, Nedar B'Kodesh, Norah Tehilot, O Sefela, Norah Tehilot, O Sefela, Mahutecha Ra'uvanecha Bokei Hayam Lifnei Moshe Elianu ve'amaru Adonayim lo le'olam va'ed Michamocha b'lim Adonai Mikamocha Nedar b'kodesh Nora tehilot Oseh peleh Nora tehilot Oseh peleh V'ne'emar kivod Adonai Et Yaakov Ugo'alo miyad hazak mimenu Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael Michamocha b'lim Adonai Mikamocha Nedar b'kodesh Nora tehilot Oseh peleh Nora tehilot Oseh peleh. Help us, God, to lie down in peace and raise us up to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace and guide us with your good counsel. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Eloheinu l'shalom Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Eloheinu l'shalom Ushmor tzedteinu Uvoenu l'chaim u'l'shalom Ushmor tzedteinu Uvoenu l'chaim u'l'shalom Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Eloheinu l'shalom Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Eloheinu l'shalom Ufros aleinu Sukat shlomecha Ufros aleinu Sukat shlomecha Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Eloheinu l'shalom Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Eloheinu l'shalom. As we give thanks for a recognition to Shabbat, it was given to us as a covenant. V'shamaru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dortam barit olam beini l'vein b'nei Yisrael ot hi le'olam v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dortam barit olam ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dortam barit olam uvayom hashvi'i Shabbat v'yinafash Shabbat v'yinafash Shabbat v'yinafash v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dortam As we get ready for our conversation with God, the Amidah, we rise as we are able, physically or spiritually, for Hatzi Kaddish to be followed by the Amidah, page 26. Yitkadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabba ba'alma divrachirte v'yamlich malchute b'chayechan u'v'yomechan uv'chaye docho beit Yisrael bagala uv'zman kariv v'maru amen yehi shmei Rabba mevarach le'alam u'l'olmei almaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalel shemei dekudisha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran ba'alma v'maru amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'zocher chastei avot, u'mevi gula livnei v'neihem, l'ma'an shemo v'ahava, melech ozer u'moshia u'magen, Baruch atah Adonai, magen Avraham, u'foked Sarah, Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, mechaye metim atarav lehoshia, morid hatal, mechalkel chaim b'chesed, mechaye metim b'rachamim rabim, somech noflim b'rofei cholim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato, lishenei afar, michamocha ba'al gevurot, umito melech, melech medmit, umechayeh, umatzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'eman atah lehachayot metim, Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh, v'yilchu hashemayim v'ha'aretz v'chol tzva'am, v'yilchu Elohim b'yom hashvi'i melachto asher asa, v'yishbot b'yom hashvi'i mikol melachto asher asa, v'yvarech Elohim et yom hashvi'i v'kadesh oto, ki vo shavat mikol melachto asher bara Elohim la'asot. Page 34. God, whose word was a shield to our ancestors, speak to us again in our own day, words which will shield us too. When we are burdened with sorrow, shield us from despair with your words of comfort. When we are riddled by doubt, shield us from cynicism with your words of faith. When we are disappointed or despondent, shield us from depression with words of hope. When we are bitter or angry, Shield us from hatred with your words of love. And when we are overwhelmed by life's circumstances, shield us from defeat with your words of promise. When we are troubled by turbulence in our lives, shield us from chaos and confusion with your reassuring words of Sabbath peace. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Baruch atah Adonai, hamevarech et amo Yisrael, v'shalom. We take a moment for silent prayer. Oh, say shalom bimromav. Oh, ya say shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. V'imru imaru. Amen. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, v'kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael. V'immaru. So this week's Torah portion is another double portion, Bahar Bahukotai. And in the midst of it is what's called the Tochacha, which is a whole series of curses. And when we chant it from Torah, we chant it kind of under our breath and as quickly as we can to get through it. And on the other side of the Tochacha, of all these curses, these terrible things that could happen, is a glimmer of hope, where God says, I will not abandon you. I will always be there at your side. So today's story is in honor of that change, that glimmer of hope. It's called The Demon in the House of Study, and it's in a book called Jewish Stories, One Generation Tells Another, by my friend Penina Schramm. One day, strange things began to happen in Rabbi Abaya's house of study. Chairs began to squeak, not the chairs the students were sitting in, but the empty chairs. Also, books began to disappear. Sometimes when a student was reading a book, it would fly out of his hands and vanish. And when would the book reappear? Only when it wasn't needed anymore. Now, it's bad enough to be bothered while studying, but it's much worse to be distracted during prayer. And that's exactly what began to happen. Everyone's prayer shawl began to slip off, and at the same time, many of them had the feeling that something was tickling their noses, making them want to sneeze. And sometimes they did sneeze. Then everyone suddenly lost his place. At first, Rabbi Abaya did not worry about these annoyances. But when he saw how the strange happenings began to interfere with both prayer and study, all of his students, even the best ones, became worried. And then something much worse happened. Strange noises were heard to come from the house of study at night. Noises that sounded like pots being banged and screeching like 1,000 untuned violins playing at the same time. Rabbi Abaya tried to ignore the noises for as long as he could, but finally realized that he would have to do something, so decided to sleep that night in the house of study to see if he could discover the cause of the disturbances. He stretched out on a wooden bench in one corner at one closest to the door, and at last fell asleep. At midnight, Rabbi Abiah was awakened by strange, eerie noises and invisible shuffling sounds. He was so frightened that he ran out of the place as fast as his legs could carry him. He now realized that the house of study was haunted. It seemed that even as a child, Rabbi Abiah had been afraid of spirits and demons, and nonetheless, whatever was haunting the house of study had to be expelled. But who was going to do it? "I'm not going back in there," he said. "It's far too dangerous a task for any of my students." Then a letter arrived from Rabbi Aha, the father of one of his former students. Rabbi Aha asked if he could come and study with Abiah. Now Rabbi Aha happened to be a very devout man who never left a problem unresolved. And he thought, he may be just the one to help us. But the more that Rabbi Abiah thought about it, the more he was afraid that Rabbi Aha would refuse to confront the demon. So he decided, when Rabbi Aha comes, we will not tell him about it. Instead, he cautioned his students, when he comes, tell him he will have to sleep in the house of study, for there is no room anywhere else. And that is what they did. At midnight, a terrible noise awakened Rabbi Aha. He jumped up and saw a nightmarish monster looming over him, a 7-headed dragon, for that is the shape the demon had taken. Rabbi Aha was terrified. He pinched himself, hoping that he was dreaming, but the pinch hurt, so he knew he was awake. His heart beat wildly, and he stood frozen in place. Suddenly the dragon roared, and the ground shook for miles around, and poor Rabbi Aha was frightened out of his wits. In his terror, he began to pray out loud. He prayed with the greatest intensity, for he was afraid that his life was as good as lost. But when he pronounced God's name for the first time, a miracle took place. One of the dragon's 7 heads flew off, crashed into the corner of the room, and disappeared in a puff of smoke. When Rabbi Aha saw this, he had his first glimmer of hope. He finished the prayer and started to recite again, even louder. And lo and behold, as he pronounced God's name the second time, another head of the dragon went flying off and vanished into a puff of smoke. 5 more times, Rabbi Aha repeated the prayer, pronouncing every word with his entire heart, and each time he repeated God's name, the dragon lost another head, and its roar diminished until it could barely be heard. And the 7th time, the dragon lost its last head and vanished completely. At first, Rabbi Aha was afraid to believe the monster was gone. But when the silence was unbroken for several minutes, he took a candlestick in his hand and searched the room and saw that it was empty. Then he gave thanks to God for saving him at his hour of danger and hurried to leave the place. When he opened the door, Rabbi Aha found Rabbi Abiah and all of his students crouched outside, trembling in fear. Assuming they had heard the terrible noise and had come to help him, he told them what happened. And when they heard the good news that the evil spirit had been expelled, they recited the prayer thanking God for protecting them from evil, and they celebrated. And after that, Rabbi Aha spent many years studying with Rabbi Abiah. Only years later did Abiah finally confess that he had known of the evil spirit haunting them. Rabbi Aha gladly forgave his beloved teacher, and together they studied and gave thanks to God. There's always hope. We take a few minutes to offer up prayers of blessing for healing, for people who are in need, body and soul, of those special prayers. And we pray as well for all of their caregivers and caretakers. Mishaberach, if you have names to offer, please put them either in the chat or say them out loud. Mishaberach is on page 37.